Shalom, shalom, Israel. Everybody can hear me. Can I get a one in the chat for those that are here? I get a one in the chat if y'all can hear me. Get a one in the chat if y'all can hear me all right. All right. Looks like I can be heard. Awesome. Yahweh Shemi Awashah Barakatah to the brothers. Yahweh Shemor Alathan by Shemi Awashah to the sisters. We are the Israelite School of Universal Practical Knowledge. Under commanding Junior Hana, started out of 1 West 125th Street in 1969. We are not affiliated with any other Hebrew Israelite or Christian group. Tonight is the history class, as you all can see by the title. This is part two. A couple weeks ago, we went over part one of the oppression. We were speaking on the oppression of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians in this country historically, not only in this country, but in the Bible. We were showing examples of our oppression, not only in the Bible, but then we were giving examples, comparable examples of oppression that we deal with here in this country. And all over the globe, honestly, but definitely here in this country. So we're going to continue with that tonight. Going to do a small recap because I want to make sure anybody who may have missed the first part kind of has some context on it. Again, I'd like to kind of start the way we did before, with some participation. Who can give me some examples of oppression that our people face in this country? Again, that are comparable to things that we faced in the Bible. Who can give just one or two examples? Anybody can give an example or two. Who wants to jump out there first? We are coming in tonight, right behind the Passover feast. Over the weekend, we had the Passover. Part of last weekend, over the weekend, we had the Passover in Raleigh, North Carolina. It was an awesome time. Clap it up for that. Got to meet a lot of the brothers, a lot of the sisters, a lot of the generals. It was an awesome experience. We were definitely in Raleigh. They knew we were in the building. Uh, there was a little bit of controversy. Some of you all might have heard it. They wanted to call for the cancellation of the Passover, and they were so upset that these black Hebrew Israelites were coming to the city. But we had the Passover anyway. There was nothing they could do to stop it. It was a glorious time. And we know now that we are in the Feast of Unleavened Bread. We will be doing that for 7 days. That started sundown Saturday. So yeah, that's what's going on. It was an awesome time. It was awesome to meet so many folks that understand the truth of this Bible and are willing to do the work and follow these laws, statutes, and commandments. Okay, we got a couple of examples here. We got some folks in the building too. All right, we got my Rib in the building. We got Sister Tawana in the building. All right. Got incarceration of our black man. Absolutely. That's absolutely true. And we know that the primary reason why our incarceration rate is so high is because the workforce of black, Hispanics, and Native Indians in this country has been the number one commodity throughout the history of this kingdom. And when they so-called abolished slavery, anybody who's gone and read the 13th Amendment understands that it says it outlawed slavery except for the punishment of crimes. And this is not exactly what the class is about specifically, but we also, it's easy to do the research to see that upon, the abolishment of slavery, that's when they put all these uh, black codes and laws um, pertaining specifically to black people, where we couldn't be out after a certain time. We couldn't be seen standing on a corner, for any period of time, because that would be considered loitering, and so then you would, be locked up. And all of these laws became um, ways to continue to oppress and particularly enslave us, and that is still going on today. We are disproportionately uh, arrested, convicted, and imprisoned on a consistent basis. And what our oppressor will have people believe is that this is because uh, we are so prone to criminal activity. But again, all these things are very, very easy to find. I'll probably do a class on that maybe next week. I don't want to go too far into it, but all these things are very, very easy to find. They're very, people have done studies on them. It's very clear that we commit crimes at no more higher rate than particularly with things like drugs and selling weed and stuff like that. We don't do that any more than any other nation. We get locked up a ton more. Um, so yeah, that's definitely one that not only happened as far as slavery is concerned in the Bible, clearly with the most famous one in the Bible when we were in Egypt, but there were other captivities that we were in, Babylon, Assyria, so on and so forth. So again, we're still uh, dealing with those today um, as we dealt with them in the Bible. Uh, Creation of projects and integration. Absolutely. Absolutely. The creation of projects was a way. So when we first, and again, I don't want to give too much of this away because this is a pretty good class for next week. But when we came out of, again, slavery, so-called slavery in this country, we were doing pretty good by ourselves. We were skilled workers. We stayed, to ourselves. The dollar circulated in our communities. We were fine. And our oppressor could not stand it. So you hear about Black Wall Street. I believe there was a Black Wall Street in Raleigh. I was not able to make that tour, but there were spaces, there were places. Harlem, New York is another one. We all know that was a thriving city in the early 1900s, shortly after slavery. We were fine, and our oppressor hated it. And so not only did he come in and destroy these spaces, he then fast forward to the drug epidemic and things of that nature, taking men out of the homes, all of that stuff to create. It was purposeful to create a space where we were impoverished, and that is all. And then you pump drugs into it, and then you step back and watch it play out. That was all purposeful. And integration, you're absolutely right, sis. Because again, we were fine, but rather than leave us to ourselves to take care of ourselves, um, they decided, no, we would rather some of that money that they're creating, some of that wealth that they're creating. And so then we have integration coupled with the destruction of the Black family, so on and so forth. So those are great, great examples. Now, at the end of the last class uh, on this topic, we were talking about the idea that um, slightly. What we spoke about last class was how we kind of got to a point where we were being oppressed, both in the Bible and in this country now. And both of those are really the result of us not following the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. We went over those scriptures last week. We made it clear that, and we showed that it's not that the Most High sent people or sent these nations to oppress us. It's just that he removed his protection because we were not following the law, statutes, and commandments. We gave an example of, if you have a child that continues to do something that, they shouldn't do, or you have a young adult who might be living in your home, in your house, and they continue to go out and sell dope and smoke weed and rob and steal and do all these things. At first you might look out for them. Try to get them some representation if they get arrested. You might pay for a lawyer. You might get them bonded out. But at some point you're going to say, okay, that's enough. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to have to leave you to your own devices. That is essentially removing your protection. Now, whatever happens after that is not your decision. It's just what happens after that, once the protection is removed. And that's what the Most High did with us. I'll say Raj in the building. How about Shemar Shabbat, sir? That's what the Most High did with us. So he removed his protection, and we had to deal with the ramifications of that. And it was a cycle. He would remove his protection. We get back right for a time. He'd bring us back, put us back in place we were supposed to be. We'd stop obeying and stop following the law again. We'd go back in captivity. That's what it was. But towards the end of the class, we talked about the idea that once we get back to following the law, statutes, and commandments, then we can step into some of these other prophecies that are in the Bible, because the curses are definitely prophecies that are in the Bible. There's some other prophecies that are in the Bible that let us know what will happen and how things will be different once we get back to collectively following the law, statutes, and commandments. The reason why I say collectively is because Most High judges Israel on a collective basis. He doesn't judge us individually. So that's why we're out here trying to wake more of us up. That's why it's so important. So we can get more people, more bodies, more brothers, more sisters to get back to following the laws and statutes and commandments. So eventually some of these different prophecies that we're about to get into will start to come to fruition. So all that being said, we're going to start with the 30th chapter of Jeremiah. 30th chapter of Jeremiah. We're going to start at verse 8. Book of Jeremiah, chapter 30, verse 8. It says, "For it shall come to pass in that day." So again, this is a prophecy. Something is going to happen in that particular day. There's a specific time period that this is going to happen. "Saith the Most High of Hosts." This is coming directly from the Most High. All right. It says that I will break his yoke from off thy neck. There's a precept to this, because what kind of yoke is this talking about? You can tell me the yoke that this is referring to, and you get extra bragging credits if you can tell me the specific verse that it comes from. Who can tell me? Who can tell? Who wants to give it a shot? For the sake of time, I will give it to y'all. This is Deuteronomy. This is a precept. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 48. Now, this is part of the curses that were predicted. All right. says, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord, Shalaki, which the Most High shall send against thee. So this is talking about our enemies. Okay. This is the Most High wanting us to fully understand that we have enemies out here. This is the Most High wanting us to fully understand that regardless of what Christian church says about how you should love everybody, so on and so forth, we have enemies. All right. We are the first ones to forgive every other nation except each other. We are the first ones that when there's a shooting or shooting of an unarmed black man and by the police, by anybody, we're the first ones that we have to forgive. We just want to forgive and it's okay. No, we have enemies out here. We don't realize it. They do. All right. Says, thou shalt serve thine enemies, which the Most High shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness. In hunger and in thirst and in nakedness, we're going to serve our enemies. That's talking about resources. That's talking about us not having control of resources. We are going to serve these other nations, and we're going to have to go to these other nations in order to get our food, in order to get our our water. Think about water. We have to pay for water for everything. 70% of the world is covered with water. We got to pay for it. Everybody got a water bill, and if you don't have a bill, they ain't going to be paying it. And nakedness, clothing. These things are bare necessities, right? Everybody needs to eat, everybody needs to drink, and everybody needs to be clothed. And in all of those things, we serve other nations. We make other nations rich. We talked, I think it was last week, somebody we talked about what happens when we get a little paper. Somebody said we buy Jordans and cars. Right. We buy all these other things, but we're buying it and we're building up other nations in the process. Right. It says, and in want of all things, everything we want, we essentially have to go to another nation to get everything. And we're the ones who work and have worked the hardest. Our ancestors built this country from the ground up. And we have to go to other nations for everything we want and desire. And it says, and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck. We all know what this is, right? This is a prophecy about the curses that were going to fall upon Israel. The yoke of iron is slavery. It's transatlantic slave trade in addition to the other ones. So we have lost the value of supporting each other. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have no interest in supporting each other. We have no compassion on each other to give each other a chance enough to support each other. I think I said this last week that, we all deal with all the different, we all have to patronize all these different companies, right? But how often do you hear us talking so terribly about black-owned businesses? Right? People have one bad experience with a black-owned business. First thing out of mind. See, that's why I don't mess with black folks. That's why I go to white man for everything. But the reality is, if you have a problem with Verizon, you don't say, "Well, that's why I don't mess with the oppressor." That's not what you do. That's not what you say. You might at best say, "I'm not going to mess with Verizon no more." Most of us don't even do that. You're like, yeah, it just happens. Stuff happens. It's okay. We have completely lost the value of supporting each other. We have completely lost the compassion that we're supposed to have for each other. But yeah, it says, he shall put a yoke of iron on our neck until he hath destroyed us. We are destroyed in this country. We are destroyed around the world. So-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians have been destroyed and are being destroyed actively. But that's the yoke of iron that it's referencing in Jeremiah, right? So let's go back there. So like, my computer is doing something. One second. All right, good stuff. Sister says, when we get successful, many see it as a badge of honor and then get an oppressor on their arms. Yeah, that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. And the brothers are the worst. The brothers are the absolute worst. Though the sisters are starting to do it too. You get a little bit of paper, you think you've elevated yourself to a certain level, so now you got to go get one of these oppressors. And be clear, it doesn't have to be just our main oppressor, Esau. A lot of us go, we'll go get Moabites, we'll go get anything. Which is the most amazing thing because again, Israel is blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You can find anything, brothers, you can find anything you want within those 12 tribes. It's enough variety, no doubt. Sisters too. Again, at Passover, listen, every shade of brown you can imagine. But it's a status symbol. And we got issues with being Israel. We have issues with our people. We don't have compassion. We don't have love. We got a lot of self-hate. So that's what we do. That's exactly what we do. All right. Yes, it says, going back to Jeremiah 30:8, it says, I will break his yoke from off thy neck. So we know the yoke that this is talking about. It's talking about, in slavery. It's talking about being in captivity to another nation. So Most High is saying that it's eventually he's going to break that yoke off of our neck. He said, and it says, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of him. Does anybody not understand what that means? Strangers, what's a stranger in this context? What does this mean by stranger? For stranger in this context, it just means another nation, non-Israelites. So a stranger shall no more serve themselves of him being Jacob or Israel. 12 tribes of Israel, Israelites, right? So he's saying, I'm gonna break this yoke off of your neck, and I'm not gonna allow these nations to take advantage of you anymore. You're not gonna be subject to their rulership anymore. Verse 9. But they shall serve the Most High their God, and David their king, who I will raise up unto them. Now, who's the they in this case? The they is Israel, right? They're going to serve the Most High their God, because that's who the Most High, the Most High is the God of Israel. We're going to go to a precept in a second about that. David is their king. He will raise up unto them. Right? That's talking about Christ. Because Christ is essentially David. Right? We all know that. Let's keep going. Verse 10. Therefore fear not. Salaki. Therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Most High. Again, Jacob's name was changed to Israel. This is talking to and about Israel. Okay? So he's saying, I'm gonna stop all of this. All right. I'm not gonna let these nations continue to take advantage of you at some point. See, because it shall come to pass, right? That in that day, at a particular time, that the Most High has decided on, He's going to stop this. He's going to stop the oppression. He's going to stop, you know, us being used by these other nations, us having to serve these other nations. He's going to raise it. He's going to allow us to serve Him, right? Which we are not doing, right? And we're not going to have to fear anymore. Because let's be real. That's how to exist, particularly in this country, as a Black, Hispanic, and Native American, is to be in a constant state of oppression and fear. Right? Anybody who has or has had a son or a daughter, but definitely a son, get a driver's license, knows what I'm talking about. What's the one thing when our children get a driver's license that we have? What's the conversation that we have to have that virtually no other nation has to have? Somebody give it to me. There's a topic of conversation that we have to make sure, as Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we have to be sure to cover with our children once they start driving. Pray they don't get stopped because they can be easily murdered. That's one thing we do as parents, absolutely. Not quite what I was looking for, though. It's a particular conversation we end up having to have. There are things that we have to tell our children particularly once they start driving. There's a particular topic of conversation we have to address. You want it, but it's more than just praying that they don't get stopped. Who else want to take a shot at it? Watch who they have with them. Close. All true. All true. Not the specific one I'm looking for. You get it too personal, man. All right, for the sake of time, I'm gonna give it to y'all. I'm not even gonna repeat what you said. For the sake of time, I'm gonna give it to y'all. We have to have conversations with our children once they start driving about how to interact with police, what to say, how to say it, what not to say, how to be very clear. We have to basically we have to train our children on how to conduct themselves when they interact with police. No other nation has to do that. No other nation talks about, listen, when you get pulled over, make sure you speak very clear, very respectful, so on and so forth. Keep your hands where they can see them at all times. Don't make any sudden moves. Agree to everything that's agreeable because your job is to get home safe. No other nation has to have those type of conversations with their children. Why? Because no other nation lives in a state of fear the way Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians do in this country. That's something very, very unique to us as a whole. Don't get me wrong. There's some brothers out here that maybe they don't. Some Blacks, Hispanics, maybe Native Indians, maybe they don't specifically. By and large, we do. By and large, we do. The sister said, watching you have in your car with you. Absolutely. We have to tell our children that. They have to be mindful that they can't have too many black men in the car together, children or adults. If there's too many brothers in the car together, hey, listen. If a cop shows up, everybody knows the rule. If I have any brothers in here, if I have one brother in here, please answer the question. Everybody knows the rule. If you drive with a bunch of brothers, cop pulls up behind you, there's a specific rule of what not to do in that situation. Sisters might know. If one of your sisters think you got it, go ahead and give it a shot. I feel like the brothers definitely know. Oh, it's lucky. I didn't realize Sister Tawana got it. Father say while they're driving. Yes, to keep them from being pulled over and explain what to do when they're pulled over. Give the sister a hand. She was absolutely right. She was absolutely right. You said we scare them too much. Why do you say that? Anybody want to give it a shot? I'm telling you that there's a brother. There's 4 or 5 brothers in the car. At least, cop car pulls up behind you. There's a specific rule. There's a thing that you absolutely do not do. Anybody in the car. I mean, maybe I'm dating myself. I don't know. I don't think it's changed that much. I know this was definitely a rule when I was coming up. All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to give it to y'all. The answer is nobody looks back. Because this right here will get the whole car pulled over. That right there would be reason enough to pull the car over. Because then they get to say, well, you were looking suspicious. Back when I was coming up, anyway. Maybe that's not the deal anymore. I don't know. But that was definitely a rule back then. Don't look back. You know the car back there. I know the car back there. Nobody look over their shoulder. All right, sister, we scared him too much. I don't know. If you want to follow up with that, let me go ahead and I'll see what I can, what we can address. All right. Back in the scripture it says, so therefore fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith the Most High. Neither be dismayed, O Israel. For lo, I will save thee from afar. Don't be dismayed at this point. I understand. This is where we are now, right? It's gonna get better. Now there's some things we got to do, and we're gonna get into that. But all you gotta do is, well, we're gonna get into that. Always justice, like you. I get what you're saying. You're absolutely right. They always justify killing our son by saying they feared for their life. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And all of this is a part of oppression. All of it is a part of oppression. It's you can do something to me and it's okay. It makes sense. The minute I do the same thing to you, you're petrified for your life. So now you have to shoot everybody. You definitely got to kill me. Philando Castile, I think, is a great example of that. Everybody says, people are supposed to have their paperwork right for if you have a weapon and so on and so forth. And they're so scared that people are going to have weapons, and especially brothers, and they got illegal guns and so on and so forth. Their brother told him up front, a license to have a gun in the car, have a weapon in the car. Kept asking to see his license. He go to reach for his license. Oh, you must be going to get your gun. So do you want me to tell you and show you my paperwork? Or should I just shut up? Either way, I'm wrong. But you're going to be scared for your life. Brothers get shot with cell phones in their hand. Why? I thought it was a gun. Yes, you're absolutely right, sis. We do scare. No, I shouldn't say we scare them. They're scared. I like to phrase it that way. Because we don't really do anything more or less. If anything, we're scared. But yes, it says, fear not, neither be dismayed. For I will save thee from afar, because we're no longer in our land. We are scattered all across the earth. And the Most High is saying, even where you are, I'm going to save you there. And thy seed from the land of their captivity. Again, we're in captivity here. We are in complete captivity in this nation, in this kingdom. And brothers and sisters are in captivity all across the earth. The Most High is saying, it's gonna get better. Just keep, just get right, because there's gonna come a day when you're not gonna have to worry about being scared. You're not gonna have to worry about being, you're not gonna have to worry about these other nations. You're not gonna have to worry about this captivity. I'm going to save you, or save your seed from those captivities all across the planet. And Jacob shall return and shall be in rest and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. That's not our reality right now. We don't get to rest. We don't get to rest. How many of us know brothers that got 3-4 jobs, 3-4 slavers, trying to make ends meet? And especially if you're in the school, this is work. We don't get to rest. We don't get to rest. This ain't ideal. This is because we're in the oppression that we're in. We're trying to get out. We're trying to help our brothers and sisters to get out. But even not being in the school, we have a ton that we have to deal with. Brothers will have 3 and 4 jobs just trying to pay rent and utilities and things, for basic needs. Most High saying there's going to come a time where you're going to be able to rest, sit somewhere and be quiet, relax. And you're not going to have to be afraid of anyone at that time. Let's keep going. Verse 11 says, for I am with thee, saith the Most High, to save thee. He's with us. No, he's going to be with us. This is all a prophecy. It's going to happen. It's going to come to pass. Child support, exactly. Child support is another one. Brothers have to listen. I had a partner in the world years ago, and situation went down. He and his rib split, and she took him on child support. And I want to say the brother was having to pay like half of his take home in child support. And I remember looking at him like, well, what, how are you supposed to live? He was like, I don't know. And no one cares. No one cares. Once that gavel goes down, it's a wrap. And what happens when you go get another job? if you've decided to have a child with a sister that's not righteous, now you got another job. You're making a little bit of money. Now you're doing a little bit more money. You're doing this so you can pay the first child support. She finds out sister not in the truth. Sister don't have no compassion on her brother. The father of her child, guess what she's gonna do? I'm going to get some more money. I'm going to get some of that too. And Esau's going to give it to her. Because this is the breakdown of the family. Let's keep going. Yeah, verse 11, the Most High said, I'm with you. He's going to be with us, right? At the right time. Then it says, though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have scattered thee. He's going to bring these nations to an end, a full end. Now, does that mean he's going to take out everybody and wipe everybody completely out? No, but he is going to completely destroy them. He's going to destroy these nations. He's going to destroy these nations. And by the time this happens, Israel is going to have done what we need to do to get back in our rightful place. This is what you're hearing about. You're hearing about us coming out of this oppression. You're hearing about what's going to happen once we're out of this oppression. And we're going to get into how that happens in a second, but we need to do to make sure that happens. But he said he's going to, yet I will, let me see. Though I make a full end of the nations whither I have scattered thee, yet I will not make a full end of thee. Hey, shalom, sis. That's Sister Anna. I met Sister Anna at Passover. That was awesome. That was awesome. Good to see you, sis. It says, yet I will not make a full end of thee, meaning he's not going to destroy Israel. Okay? Not exactly. He's not going to make a full end of us. It says, but I will correct thee in measure. What does that mean? Corrected in measure. What does the word measure mean there? Who can tell me? Who could tell me what the word measure means? I think I might just look it up. According to I think that's Cap. I'm not designing a shop, I believe in the building. The definition of measure, according to the Webster's, is an adequate or due portion, right? So when it says the size, close, well, that's about right, sis. That's about right. The size, right? An adequate or due portion, right? So that's how he is going to deal with Israel. Now, the rest of these nations that we're scattered in, he's going to destroy them fully. But Israel, he said, I'm not going to destroy you fully, but I am going to correct you with measure. So there's a portion of us, there's a portion of correction that we're going to need. Because there's going to be a portion of us who come in and into the ISUPK, start following these laws, statutes, and commandments under command of General Hunter. There's going to be a portion of us that does that. And it's going to, there's a portion of us doing it now, and it's going to grow up until a point where this prophecy starts to happen. And so the Most High is saying, I'm going to correct some of y'all because I have to. But only the portion that's due, only the size that is appropriate. So how do you avoid it? Get in the ISUPK and the Command of General Yohana and learn how to follow the law, statutes, and commandments. All right. It says, and I will not leave thee altogether unpunished. Again, he's making it clear. The Most High is making it clear. You got to, I got to, some of y'all don't have to get this. It just is what it is. You got to get his anger, you got to get his punishment. It is. You want to avoid that. Again, get an ISUPK and the Command of General Yohana, follow these laws, statutes, and commandments, become a better sister, become a better brother. Do what the Most High says do. Stop doing what he says not to. And then you can avoid this punishment that is going to come. All right. Now let's we're gonna skip down to 16. Now, this is talking about again the nations and what's going to happen to them once we come back to the Most High. Verse 16, it says, therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured. What does that mean? It's to devour. Let's get the definition of it first. Who can tell me that? What does it mean to devour? To devour. What do we think that is in this context? Therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured. You want to give it a shot? One second. All right, let's see what we got. To take over, consume, or overtake. To get rid of. All right. Or destroy. All good answers. All good answers. In another context, I don't think anybody's wrong. In another context, it also means to prey upon, right? But I think you can use all of those terms somewhat interchangeably, because again, these other nations have devoured us. They have preyed upon us. They have attempted to destroy us, and they have destroyed us in a lot of ways, right? They have consumed our labor, our efforts, our inventions. They have consumed these things, right? And it says, they that devour thee shall be devoured, right? So everything's going to flip. We are then going to be the ones in the higher position, as we should be, right? It says, in all thine adversaries, every one of them, right? Why is it every one of them? We know we have a primary oppressor. We know who that is, right? But the reality is, it's not just that nation. We know that a lot of nations had a hand in the transatlantic slave trade, whether it be the Arabs, whether it be the Europeans, whether it be the Africans. Each of them had a hand in the transatlantic slave trade and our destruction and our captivity and us being devoured. They each preyed upon us. They had a hand in it, they had a participation in it, and they profited off it. So when it says, and all thine adversaries, it's talking about everyone who had a hand in our oppression, and our captivity, and our destruction, and our being devoured and preyed upon. Every one of them shall go into captivity. This is what the Bible says. The Bible says they're going to go into captivity. I didn't say that. I just read it straight out of the Bible. You know, we were at Passover, right? And you know, when some of the scriptures and everything, well, not scriptures, but the prayer was being read both in Hebrew and in English. You know, afterwards, I was talking to a brother who's not in school, and he was like, you know, one thing I realized, y'all hate everybody. It's funny, but I explained to him, I was like, it's not necessarily that we hate everybody. We just, I mean, Salaki, let me rephrase that. We have a reason to hate everybody. We have a reason to hate everybody because of the crime. When I say everybody, all these other nations, and that's what that's what he was speaking to. And we have a reason for it. All these other nations had a hand in the crimes that were and committed crimes against our nation. So we have a reason to have a negative disposition to all these other nations. Again, I think we talked about it, a couple weeks ago. When them towers fell, America went to war with everybody in the Middle East, damn near. Countries that had nothing to do with it, they sent bombs and drones over there. And we're absolutely fine with it because they felt they had been violated. There was an act of war that had been committed against them, and they responded from their perspective and measure, right? And when the Most High and Yahushua comes back, Yahushua is going to respond in measure to all these other nations. So yeah, we have a reason for it. It's not just because they're strangers. It's not just because they're non-Israel. It's not just because they're heathens. It's because of the crimes that they committed against our ancestors and that they continue to commit against us now. Sisters say they have hated us because we are the Most High's chosen people and they know. So, all right, let's keep going. It says, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil. What's a spoil in this context? Who knows? They have spoiled thee and shall be a spoil. What is a spoil? And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil. What is a spoil? We all know what it is to spoil a child. That's a verb. This is a noun. Okay. What is a spoil? Who wants to take a shot? What is a spoil? All right, for the sake of time, we're going to go. According to Webster, it says a spoil is a plunder taken from an enemy in war or a victim in robbery. Plunder taken from an enemy in war. This is the Most High acknowledging and letting us know this is a war. The crimes that have been committed against our nation by these other nations are acts of war. And we as the people are the spoils of that war. Which is why we're in captivity, which is why we have to work their fields, particularly, our Hispanic brothers and sisters. You are on it, sis. Something that is taken by force or craft. Exactly. It's something that's taken by force. But particularly an act of war. When any nation goes and wars against another nation, and whatever they win, they to the winner goes the spoils. I may have heard that before. When you take over and you win a war, you get all the benefit of the resources of that nation that you defeated. That's what a spoil is. In our case, they made the best use or the resource that they used the most was our labor, our mind, our intelligence. They used it then and they continue to use it today. And we have been a spoil to these other nations. But the Most High said, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil. So they took advantage of our resources. And there's going to come a time when the Most High and Yahweh shall decide. Well, when the Most High decides and Yahweh shall comes back, that we are going to be the recipients of the spoil of these other nations. And they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Again, this is referencing the devourer, right? We were a prey. We are a prey on these other nations. particularly Esau. But all these other nations, we are a prey upon. A prey in a sense that they siphon the resources out of our communities. That's why there are Chinese food stores. Officer Raj says it all the time. There's Chinese food stores. Where do you get Chinese fried chicken? Who taught you how to fry chicken for black folks? What are you talking about? Y'all got fried chicken in Asia over there, China, wherever? I doubt it. Because we all know they frying something, but it ain't chicken. It ain't chicken. They got some four-legged animals over there that they, they're domesticated over here. They're not domesticated over there. They're used for food. So where do you get fried chicken from? You set up shop in a black neighborhood, and then you siphon the resources out. The same with the beauty supply stores. That's what they do. They set it up, they siphon it out, they use it to build up their nation. Same with a lot of these corner stores, 7-Elevens. There's a reason why it's the stereotype that 7-Elevens are run by Arabs, because a good chunk of them, particularly in the black neighborhoods, are, because they siphon the resources out and use it to build up their nation. Let's be clear, the only time we even, or the way we get these resources from our way building up Esau. So we get a little bit of paper from building up Esau's nation. So now in order to sustain ourselves, we then spend it, we then spend it with every other nation. So they're using our work, our labor, and they're using the fruits of our labor. Nothing comes back to us. But the Most High said, those that preyed upon you, those that devoured you, there's going to come a time when they're going to be a prey for you. We're going to get to how to get there. We're going to get to how we're going to get there. All right. Verse 17, for I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds. What kind of, when it says restore health unto thee, what does that mean? That can be metaphorical and actual, because we listen. The way we eat, not following the dietary laws with high blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, or sugar. So that's the funniest thing. It always happens. Yeah, between all these different ailments, we're always at the top. We're always the most affected. COVID-19 hit, right? I remember for a minute, because it started, across season, whatever, for a minute, a hot minute. It went on. A lot of black people was like, I don't even think that's affecting us. That's white folks, blah, 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 blah. Till it got going good. And I think deaths went up, the death rate for blacks was like number one. We were the number ones dying from it. I will restore health unto thee. So that's part of it, but it's also just things like the health of our economy. We don't have one. We don't keep our resources. We don't use our resources to build up our nation. That's why our communities are sick. Our communities are run down, destroyed, not well. says, and I will heal thee of thy wounds. We have wounds. We have generational wounds, curses, not just the curses from not following the Most High, but curses coming, or not curses, but wounds and trauma. That's the word I was looking for. Trauma coming out of slavery. These are things that the Most High is saying that He's going to heal. And these are things that we need to be healed from. Saith the Most High, because they called thee an outcast. That almost doesn't even need a breakdown, right? We are the outcast of this nation. Blacks, Hispanic, the Native Indians are the outcasts of this nation. One second. We are the outcasts of this nation. Particularly, I mean, listen, we can break it all down. Black folks, they don't want us around, but they want us around. They don't want us around, but they want all the benefits of again, our labor and resources, but they don't want us around. And Hispanics, come on. Listen, it's amazing to me that you have people talking about how, well, they're coming over taking our jobs. They're crossing the border taking our jobs. And then you also have stories of them coming in, taking everybody off the job site, right? They're going to still call deport them. And then the owner of the company is like, I can't hire nobody. I can't get nobody to come in and get these jobs. Then you have people who fully understand that, look, man, we're paying them cheap labor anyway. We don't want them here. We want the cheap labor. We don't want them here. It's the most backwards thing in the world. And our Native Indian brothers, come on. Captain Natasaka Shah says it all the time. People don't even understand that Native Americans still exist. You can talk to people, it's like they don't believe it. Because we are viewed as outcasts, and we are meant to be on the outside of their society as far as they're concerned. Once they devour and prey upon us sufficiently in their mind. Saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. What does that mean for no man to seek it after us? What does it mean for no man to seek it after us? You want to give it a shot? No man seeketh. Time check, I'm going to give it to you. So, this is kind of recapping, right? So Most High is saying, look, I know you've been preyed upon by all these nations. You've been devoured by all these nations. You've been taken advantage of by all these nations. Because their perspective, these nations' perspective is, this is Zion, who, who no man seeketh after. No one cares. That's the point. No one cares. No one cares about Israel. Here's a precept too. Deuteronomy 28-68, right? It says, in the Lord, in the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. We've broken this down before. Egypt is a Greek word that means house of bondage. So it's saying that the Most High is going to bring you into the house of bondage again with ships. You remember that this section of Deuteronomy is about the curses that will befall Israel if they did not follow his law, statutes, and commandments. It says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. That's talking about the land of Israel. You're not going to see it anymore. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen. We know what that is. It's very clear. You're going to be sold into slavery in this land, right? And no man shall buy you. That is the same context as no man seeketh, or no one seeketh after. It just means, now this buy means no one's going to redeem you. No one's going to come and save you. You're just going to be in slavery. Nobody's going to come and buy you and get you out. In Jeremiah, nobody's going to seek it after you. No one's going to care. You were just going to be a prey to these nations. You were just going to be devoured by these nations. You're going to be an outcast by these nations because this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Nobody look over them. But again, this is all the Most High saying this is how it was. But I'm going to change all of this. Because if we go to verse 22, Jeremiah 30:22, at the end of the day, it says, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your power. Most High saying there's going to come a time where I'm going to change all of this. Right? So the question is, how do we do that? How do we get from where we are now to that? Right? Let's go to Zephaniah chapter 2, verse 1. It says, gather thyselves together. Ye gather together, O nation not desired. We should be gathering ourselves together. That's the first thing we need to do. We need to come together. Absolutely right. How do we do that? By getting in the ISUPK and rebuilding our nation. We are gathering ourselves together in the ISUPK. That's what we're doing. We are gathering ourselves together, teaching our brothers and sisters how to get back on the right side of God so that we can, on the right side of the Most High, so that we can rebuild our nation. It's the first thing we need to do, right? We go to Isaiah 64:6. It says, but we are all as an unclean thing. Again, collectively, right now, we are as an unclean thing, which is why we have to gather ourselves together, train up our brothers and sisters. Because right now, we are as an unclean thing. Right now, the bulk of us believe you can eat shrimp, crab, pork, lobster. You can eat anything you want. You can celebrate anything you want. All these other pagan holidays, which we broke down a few weeks ago, all these other pagan holidays, you can celebrate them, and it's okay. It's not. Right? And all our righteousness are as filthy rags. Even our righteousness is as a filthy rags. Meaning what? Don't be too proud. Don't be too proud, even if you're in the UPK. Don't be too proud. Be humble. Stay humble. Understand that this is a you are a vessel being used by the Most High. Don't get too proud. Don't get too proud and don't look too don't look down on your brothers and sisters. Understand people got to be woken up because all of us at one point were not in the UPK. All of us at one point were not in the truth. So don't be too proud that you're right now on the right side of the Most High, personally. Because one, you're one person, and your righteousness as a filthy rags. And two, collectively, we are all as an unclean man. So don't be too proud. That's all the same, right? And we all do, and we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities, like the wind, have taken us away. We've all had that experience, right? Because again, we didn't come up in the truth. We weren't born in the truth. So there was a time for all of us, the wind that took us away, just blew us away. Learn. We had to have an understanding. We had to come into these classes and be trained. And now that we've been trained, then we can go out and try to wake some other folks up. Sisters can go out and try to wake some other sisters up, bring them in the class so they can learn. Brothers can bring brothers in the class so they can learn. And again, over a long enough timeline, collectively, the Most High said, okay, they got it. We're not there yet. All right? Let's see. So again, how do we come, out of this oppression, right? We know we got to gather ourselves together. We got to get, in the ISUPK, start rebuilding our nation, start following these law, statutes, and commandments, right? So let's go to Isaiah 54:14. It says, in righteousness shalt thou be established. In righteousness shall we be established. Righteousness meaning following the law, statutes, and commandments. Be on the right side of God. Stopping these wicked practices that we have so happily and willingly and willfully been participating in. And some of us in ignorance, but some of us almost in willful ignorance. Like I remember when I was in the world, and there was this biblical theology class or whatever, school. And it was around Christmas, right? And they were going over all these scriptures and so on and so forth. And again, they're perpetuating the story that Christ was born and so on and so forth, right? And then at the very, very end of the class, the guy who was kind of running and teaching the class, he handed out a piece of paper that basically explained how Christmas had its roots in pagan worship. This is right at the end of the class when he told everybody, what does it? Jesus is the reason for the season and all that stuff. And then right at the end of the class, he passed it out, gave it to him. So I was like, wow. At first, I was like, well, that's kind of genuine. I don't know. kind of backwards too, right? So I remember he said something like, y'all take it home, read it. We're gonna discuss it. Come back to class. Blah blah blah. So of course I made sure I went to that class because I was interested. And he was like, he went on to explain, yes, this, pagan worship and the start of the pagan, blah 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 blah. And then somebody asked him the specific question. So we shouldn't be doing this. He was like, well, you can still do it, blah 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 blah. He just explained it away. And it just left me like, this is amazing. Now this is willful ignorance. Or just straight rebellion. Not only did he know the truth, he then explained the truth, but then gave people the okay to completely ignore it. And this is the Christian church. In righteousness shalt thou be established. Thou shalt be far from oppression. Once we're established in our righteousness, we will be far from oppression. We're not there yet because we haven't gotten right with the Most High yet. For thou shalt not fear, and from terror it shall not come near thee. But it has to be established in righteousness. We can't get to the second part of the verse without hitting the first one. It has to be established in righteousness. Once that's done, what's righteousness? Following the law, statutes, and commandments. Once that's done, then we can get all the benefit. Verse 15. Behold, they shall surely gather together. Again, gather together yourselves, right? A nation not desired. Oh, Salaki, that's not what this is referenced. Salaki. It says, behold, they shall surely gather together, but not by me. Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for thy sake. Meaning this. They're gathering together. Israel's gathering together. Not by the Most High, though. They're gathering together under Christianity, gathering together under Islam, gathering together under celebrating, Valentine's Day, gathering together celebrating St. Patrick's Day. What is that about? What Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian ever thought this is something we should be celebrating? St. Patrick's Day? That is an Edomite holiday. I mean, they don't even front. They don't even act like it's not. And you got brothers and sisters walking around wearing green, ready to pinch somebody. Like, I don't understand. So we gather under all these things, but not of the Most High. Not of the Most High. So how should we gather together? Right? We've been talking about it. Getting in the ISUPK, following these laws, statutes, and commandments. Right? If we go to Psalms 147, verse 19, again, this is why this is clear about how we're supposed to be righteous and how we're supposed to bring ourselves together by the Most High standards. It says, he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. We are called by the Most High to follow his laws, statutes, and commandments. It's that simple. He chose us as his people. He's telling us that eventually, while you're going to go into these, while you're going to be subject to these curses if you don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments, that eventually it's going to come to pass that you're going to get right. It's going to be the same path, though. Getting right in our righteousness, following the law, statutes, and commandments. It says he showeth his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. Verse 20. He hath not dealt so with any other nation. No other nation is called to follow these laws, statutes, and commandments. That's why they don't care to do so. We are. No other nation is called to follow these laws, statutes, and commandments. No other nation is shown his judgments for not doing so. We are. He hath not dealt so with any other nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye the Most High. So when we wonder why we're in the position that we're in, when we wonder why we're under the oppression that we're in, when we wonder why we are treated as second-class citizens and outcasts, and people kill us and take advantage of us, siphon our resources out, all of that. We wonder why that is. It's because the Most High showed his laws, statutes, and commandments and his judgments to us. No other nation did he do that with. We have a higher obligation to the Most High. We have a higher obligation to the Most High. And we have we have repercussions that we deal with, and that we have to deal with when we don't follow the law, statutes, and commandments. So, again, this is the oppression. This is the prophecy about how we will eventually be out of this oppression. And this is the way to do it. Get in the ISUPK under Commanding General Yohana. Start following these laws, statutes, and commandments. Get to work to rebuild this nation. And with that, I say shalom, Israel. Bless this nation.